Hey guys, welcome to Wave. We talk about all things crypto. If that interests you, then do like and subscribe to the channel. In one of our earlier episodes, we spoke about Decentraland, and we saw one risk that Decentraland had, which is the number of users was so low, right? Like 30 users a day, which is extremely low. But we discovered one other thing, which was Axie Infinity, which had like about 100,000 users. Even right now, it had probably 60,000 users. And that sort of made me look at this whole sector because GameFi is one sector that will continue to grow despite there being a market downturn. Right? Maybe DeFi will get affected because the market is going down. Maybe trading activities, lending activities, all that will get affected. But gaming is something that will not really be dependent on the market, but it is more likely to be dependent on the necessary building blocks for it. For instance, is there a layer one chain that is allowing for lower transaction costs, which is there? Right? We have several Ethereum killers, and hence games built on top of these in general purpose blockchains are able to have transactions at very low cost. That is very important. We look at why in this video. Uh, are there enough, let's say, platforms to help players make NFTs for these games? Yes, there are. Like there are tokens like Engine, which are completely built for gamers to take advantage of NFTs, take advantage of existing items, so that the game can be easily built out. So the building blocks are sort of in place, and I feel that this one sector is going to explode in the coming days because of one interesting aspect that games, which was already popular, is mixed with finance. So that's where GameFi comes in, right? Where the players who used to historically play and enjoy for entertainment are today able to monetize what they have, put in terms of effort and strategy and time spent and so on, right? So that's where this whole GameFi movement sort of comes into place. We'll try and explore that. So this report is created by Cointelegraph. Cointelegraph is probably a very important stakeholder in the whole crypto ecosystem. And this particular report is written by this person who was a Forbes 30 under 30, was a Fulbright scholar, was a former fund manager of two regulated crypto funds. So, the head of research for this report sort of knows what she's talking about. And hence, I think it's a great place to start to understand the space of GameFi and maybe look at some of the interesting tokens that we can probably think of investing in. Right. So, what is GameFi? Right. So, GameFi is a mix of gaming and finance. So, where concepts of economics and finance are mixed into games to incentivize users to continue playing it, to probably have a full-time job by just playing games, right? And that is possible, right? And that sort of started with this, which sort of became big with a token called Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity, in fact, helped a lot of players in Philippines to stay out of poverty. We'll come to that later in this video. But before that, let's just see, has PlaytoOne, a concept which is in this whole blockchain gaming space, been there before? So what is PlaytoOne? PlaytoOne is when you play a game, you get points, you get tokens, you get some in-game articles, etc., which you can use to sell off to others who are interested to buy it, and thereby you make money out of it, right? So play to earn is a big part of the blockchain games, and Axie Infinity sort of made that concept very popular. Before blockchain, was there something like this? Yes, there was. Right? I don't know if you guys have heard of this virtual game called Second Life. There's this person called Alan, who made more than 1 million British pounds in 2006 by selling in-game plots. Right, this is like real estate or pieces of land within the game. This was in 2006. Can you imagine somebody made 1 million pounds? That's more than one. That's probably one. Well over $1 million, right? Other than that, if you, I'm sure many of you have played, World of Warcraft. Right? If you go to eBay, you will find several listings of in-game items that are being sold. Right? This is an example of one such listing. So already there was a market for this where players were willing to sell items that they found in the game. There were players willing to buy it. The market was already there in some form, and players were trying to use some hacks like eBay, for instance, to try and sell it. In fact, there were players where it could not be sold directly. Maybe they were selling their account credentials, and hence the other player could get access to it. So there are some very interesting ways gamers were trying to monetize what effort they were putting into it, and blockchain games made that much more easier, and hence I feel that there was a latent demand for it, and now with the introduction of blockchain into it, this will only explode. Now, how did that start, right? What was the example of this explosion? That was essentially on something called CryptoKitties. CryptoKitties was, where you could breed cats like this. Right? You would get a rare cat sometimes, depending on how this breeding process went on and so on. And you could sell that for a lot of money. So in 2017, CryptoKitties was a huge hit on Ethereum, which in fact was such a big hit that it clogged the entire Ethereum network. CryptoKitties made general transactions were becoming so slow because CryptoKitty collectors were paying a lot of money for a lot of gas fees to get their transactions ahead. If you look at these prices, there was a Genesis, like the first cat essentially, was sold for $117,000, or a quarter of a million ether back in 2017. Today, that value is way more than $117,000. There were more than 1 million cats that were bred, more than 3.2 million transactions that had happened. In fact, the highest price ever paid for a crypto kitty was about $1.34 million back in those days when Ether was still at a lower price. This is the quantum of money that some people were willing to invest in just breeding and selling rare cats. Right? So if you can, just think for a moment how big this industry is. This is just the tip of the iceberg of that industry, and from here started a lot of projects, um, and so on. So what is part of this whole GameFi moment? There are four things essentially: liquidity, mining, NFTs, fractionalization, and staking. Uh, One important metric sort of thing for us to notice here is this: nearly 50% of all active cryptocurrency wallets were connected to decentralized applications for playing games. Right? That means most of the people are, or most of the users on blockchain today are actually using it to play games. Right? That's probably the biggest the biggest application of blockchain today. In addition to, of course, DeFi, which was probably around that much, but has fallen to about 45% right now. So 50% for gaming and 50% for about close to 50%, 45% for decentralized finance applications. So now you can try and visualize how big this industry actually is, right? And how do players make money if you look at just NFT collections, for instance. Right? Axie Infinity had NFT sales of something like $500 million, right? Sandbox had about $200 million. If you just look at these numbers, just the top, eight of them had, each of them had more than $50 million of volume in terms of NFT sales, and there are enough and more people who are willing to buy it as well. Then came Axie Infinity. So Axie Infinity was this game which was essentially a game where you could sort of have like Pokemon like creatures. You could battle Axies with each other. So you had to buy three Axies to start playing the game. And Axie Infinity sort of exploded in popularity last year. People start, as you play the game, you earn something called Smooth Love Potion, which you can exchange for actual money like US dollars. Right? Axie Infinity also started selling, in addition to Axie, they started selling land plots within the game. So that was, one such land plot was sold for $2.3 million. Axie collection has already clocked about $4 billion in sales. Right? That's bigger than many companies out there. Yeah, that is how big Axie was. And if you just compare Axie with other games of last year, you see that Axie is this yellow part of the graph here. It was cornering almost 80+% of the trading volume at any point in time. Right? So that's how big Axie sort of became. Um, and can this become sustainable? Can this whole model of PlaytoOne, etc., become sustainable? Yes, definitely. There are ways to make it sustainable, and Axie Infinity was just the tip of it. Now, let me show you another interesting statistic which is there in this particular report. Yeah, here it is. If you look at the top five blockchain games that they have identified, In that there are Alien Worlds, Axie Infinity, Bomb Crypto, DeFi Kingdom, Splinterlands. If you look at balance, which is essentially total value locked, it's about something like 13 million over here in Alien Worlds, $2.9 billion in Axie Infinity. DeFi Kingdoms has about $3.5 billion. If you look at users, right, 200,000 users, 100,000 users, right, 300,000 users. So this is comparable to even games like PUBG, or games like Counter Strike, which people play on a regular basis, right? Maybe PUBG has about 800,000 users. Splinterland has like 300,000 users. So coming very close, or it within striking distance of reaching popular games like PUBG. And if you look at volumes, right, volumes of transactions that are happening, it's quite a bit. Right, right, almost $19 million, $6 million, $59 million, quite a bit of transactions happening, and even in terms of tokenomics. So this chart sort of gives you an idea of what are these games, how do they compare with each other, and I tried to even look at other sources to figure out whether this was true. If you look at Alien Worlds, they actually had about 187,000 users. Right? If you look at their activity, it's still going strong. It still has about 82,000 users as of today. If you look at Axie Infinity, same, right? They do have a good number of users. Although I see a discrepancy between the number of users here and as shown in the report. Uh, Same with Splinterlands, 99,000 users. So, what is important as a takeaway for you as an investor is there are more than 100,000 users on a daily basis who are playing at least three of these games. That means there are actual people who want to play these games, who want to utilize some of the GameFi elements in this, who are probably even making income out of this. Right? Look at the daily active users just from last year, right? And this is important because last year is when all the transaction costs sort of started coming down, the building blocks, like I was talking about. Right? And if you look at last year, all these games have exploded since last year, since the like early 2021. These games have all exploded, and many of the newer games are picking up right now. If you look at total value locked, like I mentioned, right, all in the billions. Right? That's insane. Volumes are high. Transactions again are increasing on these gaming projects. So this is one way for us to try and understand whether will this become big or not, just by identifying in terms of volumes and transactions and so on. Here's another interesting thing that's happening in Axie Infinity, for instance. You need three axes to start playing, right? So there are players, from low income countries who play, level it up, maybe sell these axes to players in high income countries. So there might be a rich kid sitting in America buying axes from a player who has invested in his time and money, trying to make it better and so on in, let's say, Vietnam. This is like your fashion industry where it's produced in low income countries in Southeast Asia and sold in European markets. Exactly like that, wealthy kids in Western countries are buying axes or buying in-game items from less well-off kids in emerging economies. And in fact, this helped people in Vietnam and Philippines a lot, because many of these people during the lockdown were playing games to make a living. They were earning as much as $1,000 a month, which was much more than what they would have earned even from their regular jobs. So it became like a full-time job for many people. And Axie, in fact, started this thing called Axie Infinity Scholar, where players were given lended sort of these axes to start playing with. So there is an entire model that is coming out of this, and players sell their axes and other in-game items like land and so on this Axie Infinity marketplace. So you can list your axie, you can sell it. So that's how players are making money out of it. There will be regulations. There will be a lot of other things that will definitely come out of these games in the coming time. But there is two things that really is powering the whole GameFi movement, and that is free trading of game materials, like we saw with the eBay example, where people were selling in-game items on eBay. Here, you already have established marketplaces, and people are going to sell everything from, let's say, swords, hats, avatars, skins, land, etc., on these marketplaces. And there is a game currency, so the trading of game currency is also happening. So maybe you earn like reward points, loyalty points, whatever, right? That is in the form of a native token of that game, and that can be sold, that can be priced, and there's a lot of transactions happening around that. because of money, there is more interest for people to start playing. There are more people who will come in and start using this as a full-time income source as well. Right? These are the two degrees of freedom that is making blockchain games better than the traditional games. Right? And where do we head on from here? Well, there is a lot of possibilities. Why? We'll talk about that, because if you look at this, the global video game industry was 151 billion in 2019. Right? Just to give you a comparison, this is bigger than the entire movie industry in terms of revenues. Right? So gamers are spending more money on games than the number of people watching movies in the entire world. Right? That is how big this industry is. And with the introduction of blockchain into this industry, this I feel that this market is only going to explode. And hence, regardless of whether the market is going down or going up, I feel the building blocks are already in place for a number of these gaming products to sort of take off. And as long as they don't have enormous hardware requirements, as long as, let's say, form factor is a mobile phone or even at least a laptop, then and nothing more than that, these games are definitely going to take off. And we'll try and make more videos on particular games that have a great potential as we go along. But for now, what you can take away from this is gaming, along with finance, is going to create a huge category defining moment in the whole blockchain space.